Good morning. It's good to be with you this morning. Looking forward to this morning. Looking forward to tonight. What a great thing to have our first trunk or treat, at least during our time here. Hope that you have your cars ready to decorate and give out food. And we don't have to be dressed up tonight, do we? We can just sort of come normal, or are we all supposed to dress up like clowns? Or Good. If you don't know about Pastor Chase's aversion to clowns, don't let me tell you anything about it. Just trying to help. Just trying to help. But I hope you'll be with us tonight, and we've got signs out to announce to our neighbors going this way, and even a sign out back here to tell all of our Shannon neighbors about trunk or treat for the night. So it'll be a good time to be together and hopefully pass out a lot of candy and enjoy meeting some neighbors. This morning is somewhat, with the song Bring Him Home, is sort of a highlight of the musical and almost everyone's favorite song. Not everybody's favorite song, but for many of us, this is sort of a highlight of the musical and a song that we love dearly. This is probably the main motivating factor for wanting to do my sabbatical project, working to find the gospel in the songs of Les Miserables, and then also to do this sort of unique sermon series of using the songs of Les Mis as sort of a parable to open up stories of the gospel. And so have been looking forward to sharing this with you this morning. To bring you up to date, to let you know where the song fits. Last week we were rescuing Cosette from the evil comic Thénardier and rescuing her from the innkeeper. And this morning we have jumped ahead about 10 to 12 years. Cosette is now a young lady. Valjean has raised her to be a young lady. They've settled in the area of Paris. Also, Javert has found his way to Paris as well. And so they're living very comfortably off of Valjean's money, but still living somewhat of a secluded life. Valjean is still dealing with his identity crises and trying to stay away from anybody that might know him and expose him. Cosette has all of the beauty and innocence of her mother and all of the grace and charm of her papa, Valjean. And so she is just this wonderful lady and meets this young man by the name of Marius Pontmercy. Marius is, any leftover hippies from the 60s here this morning? Marius nobody that's willing to admit it, huh? Okay. I just realized I was asking the wrong question. Marius would be just a revolutionary kind of 18, 20-year-old guy that's going to change the world and is going to protest against all of the government and protest on behalf of the poor, sit-ins and love-ins and everything else. And he's trying to find his identity. And he finally sees Cosette for the very first time and starts watching her. This takes place over hundreds of pages in the book, as he doesn't have the courage to go up and introduce himself. He's also afraid of whoever this guy is with her father or whoever. So he always is hiding behind trees and trying to catch a glimpse of Cosette. And they finally do meet, and it's just a wonderful story of falling madly in love with each other. They're just like a couple of lovebirds, and so they're just falling in love and wanting to plan their future. But then a war sort of interrupts the love story. It's not really the French Revolutionary War of 1789. It's more of a relatively harmless struggle that goes on in 1832 that Marius and his men of the ABC Cafe are going to take a stand, and they're finally going to make their case known, and they're looking for an opportunity to have conflict with the police. So they build the barricades, and the occasion has arisen. And Marius says goodbye to Cosette and goes off to the barricades to give his life to defend the principles of his life and his heart and his passion. And for all he knows, he's saying goodbye to Cosette for the very last time and prepares to die on the barricades. In the midst of all of that, Jean Valjean makes his way through the streets of Paris and goes to the barricades and rescues Marius about the same way he rescued Cosette from the innkeeper. As he is carrying Marius away from the barricades, Marius has been wounded in the battle, in the shooting and in the bombing and all of that in the barricades. Marius has been wounded, not fatally, but is unconscious. So Jean Valjean carries him through the sewers, carries him back to Cosette, although Marius never knows who it is that's carrying him. But in that process of getting Marius away from the barricades and taking him home to Cosette, Jean Valjean sings this song, Bring Him Home. Now, just before Caleb sings, there's enough backstory to even the writing of this song that I wanted to share this with you as well. This was the very last song before the premiere showed in London in 1985. This was the very last song that was written. They are up to within 3 weeks of the show going on, and they've got the music. Da, 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 da. They've got the tune, they've got the music, but he doesn't have any words to the music. Just got the tune. So Herbert Kretzmer, the lyricist that's writing the words, is struggling to find the right words to go with this beautiful tune. And he says, sometimes the music tells you what you're supposed to write. In the case of Bring Him Home, Kretzmer says, once I figured out that it was a prayer, it all made sense. And he literally wrote the music overnight and brings it in the next day and says, it's the prayer that goes, God on high, hear my prayer. And off it goes, and it just sort of soars. When this song becomes really the turning point for Jean Valjean. At first, they were going to use this song to talk about Jean Valjean's anger about losing Cosette to Marius. But then when Kretzmer makes it into a prayer, it begins to be the song that shows the very best of Jean Valjean. This is the song that shows him on that long journey from being a hard-hearted, self-centered criminal to being a selfless, caring soul who truly puts the happiness of another person, Cosette, in front of his own personal desires, his own personal needs. And so when Com Wilkerson, if you have seen the 10th anniversary DVD, it's Com Wilkerson that plays sings Jean Valjean there. He is the original Jean Valjean in the opening of 1985. When Com Wilkerson came into the theater to sing this song, to practice this song for the very first time, and he begins to sing, the whole place went silent. He is singing words that they had never heard. And a hush went over the whole crowd as Com Wilkinson sings these beautiful words for the very first time. After a moment of silence when he's done, somebody finally yelled out to say, I told you that this play was about God. After another moment of silence, somebody else hollered out, yeah, but I didn't know that you'd gotten him to come and sing it for us. Com Wilkerson is a great Valjean. But let me tell you, Caleb Dickinson is a great Valjean. I have been so pleased and so impressed with all of our students from SNU. I thank you for receiving my friends from school. I just met Caleb at the rehearsal when he auditioned for this song. I'm not sure if this is what you sang or not, was it? And so he is our Valjean this morning. I hope that you will welcome him and hear the song, Bring Him Home. And we have been thankful for our singers throughout this series, but I also want to say thanks to Phyllis Harris. Thank you. Every time I hear this song, it becomes a very holy and sacred moment for me. Most of the time, I close my eyes. It is just a holy time. Every time I hear this song, I stop and pray this prayer for my two boys. Without going into details, I have one boy who's pretty much in the kingdom, at home in the kingdom. And I've got a boy who's not quite home in the kingdom. And so wherever I am and whatever I'm doing, when I hear this song in any way, shape, or form, it is my prayer. God on high, hear my prayer. Bring him home. Lots of nights laying in bed with my dear wife and praying, oh dear God, bring our boy home tonight. Some of you have prayed those prayers as well. Who is it that you pray this prayer for? Who is it that you sing this song for? Some of you have parents and grandparents that you pray for. You are the young one in the family, but you have parents and grandparents that you pray for. And that you pray for God to bring them home. Especially those who are along in years. Some of you have adult children who have been brought up in the church, raised as best you knew how to raise them. Probably didn't do it exactly right, but did the best we knew. Some of those children have grown up to go far, far away from God. And some of you, older parents or grandparents, I know what it's like to sing this song and pray this prayer for your children who are far away from God. Some of you have brothers and sisters that you love dearly and have never embraced the kingdom, raised a lot like you probably, and they just live their lives somewhere outside the kingdom. Some of you with your teenagers, especially your older teenagers, are learning more and more how to sing this song, how to pray this prayer. For your children, that you can feel them slipping away from your control. You can tell them what to do and how to do it. They don't always listen. They may pretend to listen, but they're going to do their own thing. And sometimes when you are even more adamant about going this way, not doing this thing, they absolutely do this thing and don't do this thing. And so you sing this song for your little boy, for your little girl. And if I can remember back this far, for those of you who have young children, who are still under your care, they still let you tuck them in at night. They still let you give them a kiss in public. It's in junior high years that you learn that you have to get your kisses in farther and further away from school. you don't get your kisses in before you come up to the parking lot of school, you're not getting kisses. It ain't going to happen. And so some of you have very young children. Maybe, dare I say, little babies. And you find yourself singing to the little baby in your arms, God on high, hear my prayer. Save my boy. Save my little girl. This prayer automatically, instinctively takes me to Luke chapter 15. And this old father, who had his young, arrogant, independent son come to him and say, give me what's mine and I'm out of here. And the boy goes off to the far country, squanders his life, feasting fabulously with faithless friends. And you can probably hear this old father singing this song, praying this prayer. Can't you see him on his porch in the middle of the afternoon, looking down the road? I wonder if today is going to be the day that he's going to come home. I wonder if what he's doing today. I wonder how he's doing. And can't you hear him say, God on high, hear my prayer. In my need you have always been there. He's young. He's afraid. Let him rest. Heaven blessed. Dear Father, bring him home. Can't you see this old man trying to fall asleep at night, tossing and turning in his bed, wondering where his son is, wondering where he's sleeping tonight, wondering what's going to happen to him in the days ahead? Can't you hear him singing God on high? He's young. He's afraid. You can take. You can give. But Father, bring him home. Let him come home to me. Let him be mine. Let him be one of ours. This song from Jean Valjean calls me to be better than I am. This song from this prayer from this father calls me to be better than I am. This song, when I embrace this song, when I embrace this story, when I say I want to pray this prayer for my loved ones who are far, far away from God. When we pray that prayer, when we sing that song, we are, I think, embracing the very essence, the very character of God, and wanting that character to be lived out and reflected in me. We want that kind of prayer to be a part of our lives. We want to behave like the Father. We want to act like the Father. We want to pray like the Father in this story of the prodigal son. We want to sing his songs and pray his prayers. Henry Nouwen says it like this: I have become aware that my final calling in life is to become like the Father and to live out his daily divine compassion in my daily life. Though I am both to some degree the older son and the elder son, I am not to remain there. But there needs to come a time when I become the Father and not just one of the songs, not just one of the sons. And so this song in the musical Les Miserables becomes the significant turning point for Jean Valjean. It is a time where he begins to move himself off center stage. He no longer has Cosette all to himself. He is no longer the center point of her life. He is no longer the one that her life revolves around, and he can move her away whenever he's afraid of somebody catching up to him, Javert catching up. He is no longer the center point of her life. She is now catching the eyes of other young men. So he's going to have to be able to say, it's not about me. This is no longer, I'm not the center of her life. I'm not the whole part of her life. It's now about other people. It's now time for me to move aside and basically give her away to other people. Now, instead of being the receiving one, Jean Valjean is now the one who is giving her away, taking his hands off of her. And there is a dramatic shift here in who he is and how he acts. And it makes me wonder if there needs to be a time in our lives when we grow up enough spiritually that we are no longer stuck in just being one of the sons, the older son, the younger son. But is there an opportunity, is there a challenge here, even for young teenagers, young college students? Isn't there a challenge that maybe it's time for us to actually act more like the Father and embrace the characteristics of the Father? A time where we move past, I hope God will love me even though I've done the wrong thing. I hope I can come to Him. I hope I understand we never ever completely grow past our need for that. I understand that. But shouldn't there come a time in our spiritual journey where instead of going, I hope God will love me, and going to the Father for love, we become the Father who now wants to give away love? Is it possible for us to make that move? Is it possible for us to acknowledge that change and that transition in our lives? Can we make that move? Is it possible that we can not just be one of the boys, but we can now be the Father? To the point, instead of asking, what's in it for me? We move to the point where I am so blessed. I need to give away some of what I've got. Does that make sense? Instead of saying, what's in this situation for me? What's in this relationship for me? We make a shift there. And instead of wanting to take something from the other relationship, we are trying to be the one where we are the giving one in that relationship. Instead of, my life is so difficult. My day is so awful. My week is so awful. I need you guys to pray for me. I've got it so bad. Is there ever a time when we can grow to the point where instead of, come on guys, can I get a hug? Can I get some love? Can I get some... Is it possible that we would move to the place where we are looking around and finding people who are more needy than us, instead of saying, come meet my needs, we are the one who are going to do the giving instead of the receiving? Is it possible, instead of saying, I hope everybody thinks I look prettier. I hope everybody thinks I'm handsome. I hope everybody thinks that I'm so smart. Instead of going, I hope everybody notices that the spotlight is on me. Can there ever be the occasion where we look around and say, who is it here this morning who needs my words of encouragement? Does that make sense at all? Is it possible that instead of saying, I hope everybody understands how great I am, maybe it's the point where we can just shut our mouths and look for the greatness in somebody else and acknowledge that? Instead of, how can I get ahead in all of this, we turn that around to the point where we go, how can I boost the other person? How can I help the other person? How can I help someone else get ahead? I'm fine, I'll get by, it'll be okay, we'll make it, God's great, I'm good. And just give ourselves away to other people. Instead of saying, I wish my spouse would fill in the blank. And instead of saying, I wish my parents would, fill in the blank. Instead of, why doesn't everybody come meet my needs? Does there come a time? Can there come a time when we become the father who gives to others rather than the sons always looking for somebody to meet my needs? Henry Nouwen says it again this way: our return to the Father as sons. We are sons, daughters. We never cease to come home to the Father. We always need that. But our return to the Father is ultimately a challenge to become the Father. I can't remain a child forever. I have to dare to stretch out my own hand in blessing and to receive with compassion my children, my friends, dare I say even my enemies, regardless of how they feel or how they think about me. That's a tight one. It doesn't get any worse in the next slide. And it doesn't get any better in the next slide. As the Father, I am no longer called to come home as the younger or the elder son, but to be home, to be there, as the one to whom the wayward children can return and be welcomed with joy. It is very, very, very hard to just be at home and wait. It is a waiting in grief for those who have left home. It is a waiting in hope. That they will return. There is a deep, unwanted, painful level of emptiness and brokenness in the prayer of Jean Valjean and the prayer of this waiting Father. It is a powerlessness that you have nothing to do but sit and wait. You can't go fix it. If you tried to go fix it, you would make it worse. And again, some of you, your children are too young to understand this. Your children are too young for you to understand this. The powerlessness of a parent to sit and wait and hope and pray for your children. And while you're sitting and waiting, you pray, God on high, hear my prayer. And so as we close this morning, I would love to open the altar. For praying, waiting fathers, or praying, waiting mothers, or praying, waiting brothers, sisters, husbands, wives, whatever your gender is. Who are you praying for today to come home? Who is it in your life, in your heart, that's far, far away from God? And you are waiting, hoping for them to come home. I know a lot of college students over at the school who are actually praying and waiting for their parents or their brothers and sisters. I've got a bunch of freshmen ministry majors who are praying and waiting for their high school friends back home that they saw over fall break, who have left the kingdom already since they left to come to school in August. I know there are grandparents here this morning and parents who pray these prayers for your children. And no matter how old they are or how young they are. I wonder if there would be even some teenagers who would be praying for your parents, your friends. And in another way, I'm very much aware that even when I see people coming home from the war, coming home from Iraq, Afghanistan, and the reunions that happen in airports and kindergartens, and I see a little girl run into the arms of her mom or her dad that have come home from war, and think of moms and dads, husbands and wives, children, who pray for their loved ones to come home from battle, home from away. And so I would like this opportunity to pray another prayer for my boys. And I would like to extend the opportunity for you. If you'd like to come and find a place of prayer for your children, your loved ones, that you pray for on a regular basis. I've asked Caleb if he would sing this song again for us, and for Phyllis to come and play for you. And if you'd like to come, find a place of prayer around the altar, and we'll close our time together here this morning.